Gruesome Magazine.
Hello once again, this is Doc Rotten, and this is Horror News Radio, the official Gruesome Magazine podcast. Back with me again this week are the scariest, goriest, bloodiest co-hosts on the net. And tonight we're going back in time to 2013. We're going to review Hannibal Season 1, Episode 13, the season finale for the first season. We did the Hannibal fan podcast, but we started with Season 2, like the champs that we are. So now this is our opportunity, with it being on Netflix, to revisit it and kind of catch up and enjoy the show 7 years later. I hope you're enjoying us revisiting it as well. We're going to talk about it, but let's introduce the crew, shall we? I am going to do this. I am going to introduce Christopher G. Moore first. I was almost didn't do it that way, but I do want to do it this way. Award-winning filmmaker Christopher G. Moore and Fannibal among Fannibals. There you go.
Aww. So cute.
Also, I wear my special Murdergrams t-shirt.
Murdergrams. Oh no.
Comes with a toy sleepwalking stag toy.
Yes. Oh
Nice.
wow. Nice.
Of course, now I finally get to show off my little Hannah stag.
Yeah.
Does he have a bloody hand?
Yep.
Ooh.
And of course, we get to see what happens to Will next season.
That's a
Spoiler.
Spoilers.
Spoiler.
All right. Yeah. So you and I, along with Dave Dreher and the one and only Thomas Mariani, we covered 2 and 3 and a few of the movies. I remember we were already in the midst of 2 when we met you at a Mad Monster Party.
Yeah,
I believe it was. And you said, "Hey, I'm a huge fan. Come on.
I'm over here."
Yeah, you come on, and you never left.
I'm not like a bad lodger.
You've been here ever since. It's like he just squatted and we couldn't get rid of him. No,
Yeah.
I'm just kidding.
Can't make me live when it comes to Hannibal. Sorry.
All right. Also joining us is the one and only podcasting rock star, international pod. Yes, cosplay queen. English is easy. Vanessa Thompson. How you doing, Vanessa?
Good.
You did not get to join us back when we covered it. And matter of fact, you did not see the episodes when they came out the first time. You're actually watching Hannibal for the first time in 2020.
I am.
As we're doing this.
Well, and you were saying 7 years later, but to me, this feels extraordinarily fresh. Like it could be on television today.
It does hold up. All right, so we actually are talking about the finale of season 1. So you have behind you, Vanessa, the first 13 episodes and the first season. Just before we get into this episode, the whole season, how did you feel about it going? As you finish this episode?
Wow.
We started with fresh.
Yeah. This feels like it could be on television today. It really holds true to the test of time. And I'm ready for season 2. If this was real time, I would be going insane now. So many wonderful things happened in this episode. Just the shots that they give you, especially the last one. The last scene is amazing. And this whole episode is the ultimate crescendo of the season. They put all these things together and you see it so beautifully tied together. And I was screaming at my phone. I was watching it on my phone. I was screaming at my phone at the end. I love it.
I can imagine everybody looking at you going, "What's going on?"
Yeah. What?
All right. What are we talking about? We're talking about Hannibal, season 1, episode 13, Savoureux. Savory, if you want to. June 20th, 2013 is when this came out. The director is David Slade, who is also the producer. Writers Stephen Lightfoot, Scott Nimerfro, along with Brian Fuller. Of course, he is the showrunner, and based on characters from the book, Red Dragon by Thomas Harris. The synopsis for this particular episode, and look at poor sad Will there, is following a strange trip to Minnesota, Graham is taken into custody by Crawford for the probable murder of Abigail Hobbs. They find her severed ear in the kitchen sink and her blood under his fingernails. Alana is left devastated by the arrest and is determined to find the cause of Graham's dementia. Despite Crawford's insistence, there is no underlying cause. She has him drawn a clock when he tells her that Dr. Lecter had him perform a similar test, and the results solidify her belief that there is a physical explanation for Graham's instability. Yeah, that's basically what this episode does. So, Vanessa, what was your first impression of chapter 13?
Will Graham swallowed an ear? What?
I almost did.
That's my first impression. What? No. Oh, man. My first impression of this is a really well-written episode, and I just absolutely love what they do to Will Graham in this episode. The way that Hannibal has just tied a sweet little bow on this entire experiment of his, and he's seeing it come to fruition as they're taking him away, to process him. Oh, what we saw it coming to this point, but to see Will Graham arrested by the FBI was really powerful. But I almost think what surpassed that was Alana's complete brokenness at this news. She is completely broken in this moment, but yet somehow is still able to hold herself together and come up with some very adept observations in why Will could not have done this kind of stuff, and her scene in the car was just amazing. This is just an emotional roller coaster. And honestly, there's so many great performances, and normally Hannibal takes the cake in a lot of episodes, but I really feel like Will Graham, Hugh Dancy, just killed this episode with his performance. The way that we see him in the beginning to his realizations of what is happening to him, to that final sentence he utters, at the end when he's behind bars. Ugh, man, this is just a really, really phenomenal season finale. They really did a great job with this. I can't imagine that. I don't know why this would not want to be renewed. Like, I don't know why people would have had to fight and petition for that, because the show, like we've said before, it had to have been ahead of its time, because I think something like this now would just be like swallowed up by audiences.
Oh yeah. Is it fair to say you think Hannibal lured everybody into his trap? Get it? Okay, let's find out what Christopher G. Moore thought. Christopher, what was your first impression again of episode 13?
Leave your dad jokes at home, my friend.
I got a bucket of them.
Yeah, let's dump that bucket in the river. Along with the bodies. Talk about a season ender. I mean, it's very appropriate that the titled episode is Savoureux or whatever, which is a savory dessert course. And this is definitely the dessert throughout all of the beautiful dishes each one of these episodes gives us throughout the season. And what a delicious way to sort of end and keep you hanging on to like, ooh, what's going to happen next? And probably one of the more I would say emotional episodes. You get to see a lot of the characters. Alana Bloom going crazy on her steering wheel. You actually get to see Hannibal tear up. I don't know if it's fake tears.
I think they're crocodile. I think they're crocodile tears.
Are they? Are they though?
I think they are.
I don't. I almost feel like that. I don't think it's a genuine tearfulness. I think it's just him realizing that he's framing the one person that he has a friendship with. So I can sort of see how that might play out, And then also Jack Crawford, man, he's he's almost become a dick, you know, to where he's like, when Alana Bloom like goes after, it's like, he made him was like, that's because he saved lives. It's like, well, if that's the case, then all these extra people he killed, isn't he? You know, so
what about his life?
Yeah. And then you just have poor Will Graham, who's just being like strung along throughout this whole process, throughout this whole season. I mean, at least all the hidden physical problems they can finally deal with properly. Which by the way, that him having encephalitis, that was actually inspired by John Douglas, the FBI profiler that his character is like loosely based on, and was actually a advisor on Silence of the Lambs. When he was like doing the was it the Green River murder case? He had the illness due to his heavy workload.
He got encephalitis?
Yeah, because of the heavy workload he carried and dealing with the daily basis of crimes of violence, he developed encephalitis. So that's actually loosely based on what happened to John Douglas.
Oh, wow.
Who the Will Graham character is kind of, because John Douglas is the one that developed the whole profiler type job in the FBI, which actually made into Manhunter. But yeah, it's a really great episode with all the different actors coming together. Will Graham is definitely at a tipping point. There's stuff that I completely forgot about. I completely forgot about, like, there's that one scene where he sees a lot of the victims in that one room in Hannibal's room, where they're just like totally black. They're like the black stag. And this one we actually get the full black stag that looks like Hannibal. Before it was just the stag animal, and now we get sort of the man stag or the Hannah stag.
When he's like putting it all together.
Which there's one part where the camera pans and he shows up, and I actually kind of jumped a little bit. And this sort of ties into some of the creepy stuff that we get to see more into season 2. But yeah, a lot of great moments, and of course, you know, as I usually like to do, I like to point out references to usually Silence of the Lambs. And one of the first references is where they talk about like when they found all the different pieces of different victims on the lure, they talked about their trophies. And there's that line in Silence of the Lambs was like, most serial killers keep trophies from the victims. And of course, the way it ends with Hannibal Lecter showing up and, hello, Will. And he's like, hello, Dr. Lecter. And it's like the whole thing of hello, Clarice type thing. Mm-hmm. Although I think that actually is not actually the line they say in the film, but most people always attribute it to it. But there's so many wonderful moments. When you start off with him spitting up an ear and then Hannibal sort of like still trying to manipulate, but him not being so stable, and then actually what's her name? His psychiatrist talking about like people are going to start figuring out there's a pattern.
Yeah, that was wild. She was saying that.
Yeah, which again, you'll learn, Vanessa, that she's not all nicey nice. She knows what's going on. She knows more than what she's acting like. So yeah, and it's kind of sad when you see like the FBI team having to go through stuff and treat him just like a perp, treat him like the people that he's helping to arrest. And so it's sort of, it's a very kind of sad ending, but then, you sort of want to see where it goes. And also I just love the twist of putting Will Graham behind bars as opposed to Hannibal Lecter. So we get to sort of like them playing off of the stuff that we normally see and trying something different, and then he's got to somehow figure, but at the same time, you can sort of see Will Graham is almost like creepy Hannibal Lecter at the very end. Because I think he's already sort of cluing into Hannibal has something to do with it.
Yeah. Especially when he sees him as the stag, like when he's behind Jack Crawford and then in the room as well. Oh man. There's a couple things that are really interesting in this. The fact that we do get the transformation of the stag into a human shaped stag thingy, and it is taking the place closer and closer to Hannibal, and that's our guy figuring it out. He just doesn't want to admit it or whatever. I guess he kind of does, but then it doesn't help. Doesn't matter because Jack Crawford steps in. Damn him. I want to ask you though, Chris, Dr. Bedelia, I don't think she wanted to eat that veal. I think she knew.
You think she knew?
Well, she never would accept his invite to go eat, so he had to bring the food there. And she was like, slowly.
She was so very slow.
I know. It was like
so very slow, and I think she hinted at that by saying, "Oh, such a controversial meal."
Yes.
And I don't think it was because it was veal.
Right. Killed so young. So does that mean it's Abigail? Is she eating Abigail?
That's what she's afraid of, I think, for sure. But I don't know.
She probably is.
There's little flourishes like that this series does that I really love. And another interesting thing about this episode is there's no serial killer outside of our, Hannibal and perhaps Will Graham, right? There isn't the serial killer of the week. There actually isn't a murder this episode, right? Right. Matter of fact, they don't even find a body. They just find parts.
They find parts, so they don't really know for sure.
And where she was murdered.
Yeah.
In the house.
Well, there's evidence of foul play, but there's no body. Mm-hmm. And yet, but they still got him. I guess it was a little too incriminating, even at that, right? So,
well, we did find basically just found the blood.
Because the last time we saw Hannibal and Abigail, he was brushing the hair from her face, right?
Yeah, in that kitchen.
In that same kitchen.
Yeah, so it's easier for him to access her ear. Although watching this time, I did look into the sink that last time when Hannibal looks in there. It's so gross because there's just the ear and his little pills, and then some kind of weird soapy water from
it's pretty
spit
gross.
up. And I was like, oh,
from spit up.
I should have looked so closely on that part.
Yeah, it's pretty disgusting.
But there was a lot about this episode that I did not remember. I was questioning whether I'd even watched the episode, even though there are scenes that I do remember. But I'm wondering if I remember like flashbacks. I'm very curious because it didn't resonate as well as other episodes this season. So I'm wondering what happened there, but at the same time, I really liked it. Right. So it really had everything I wanted. It had they had all the emotional beats. Alana Bloom was back. Thankfully, it answered questions and asked questions. It put more people into the spotlight, into the circle of mistrust, if you will. That's all around Hannibal. And they keep saying, I think Will said it literally here. It's somebody, that has access. He knows everything. He has access to everything. He knows forensics. He knows, details. But he still can't point the finger at Hannibal. Why? He points it at Jack instead.
Well, that early on, though, I think later on in the episode, he figures it out.
Well, that and I think although Hannibal tried to throw her off, but Alana Bloom, I think, with the whole clock thing was wondering about that. And then, of course, luckily he had a later clock drawing, but he didn't really infer that Will had been drawing that crooked clock the whole time.
Crooked clock. Yeah, he didn't say about that one.
Although I really want to say we're talking about was he like fake crying during that one scene? The very last scene when he goes to meet Will, he psychs himself up.
Oh yeah, you hear that music,
and he closes his eyes for a second because I think he's also trying to.
Does he psych himself up though, or is he like super like is he basically like this is the moment.
He's not
this is
Miggs.
the crescendo.
He's not Miggs. I'm bleeding. Want to see? He's not Miggs in the cell right next to him. No,
I don't know. That feeling came off
I think
exuberance.
I think he's trying to put on his human suit in front of Will, so he doesn't let himself be known, because he realizes that Will, because he doesn't have the encephalitis to sort of shade things, he's gonna like automatically be cluing in on him.
Did they figure it out? It was encephalitis?
Yeah, they talked about that it was encephalitis in one half of his brain.
I missed that part.
They were giving him medication.
Yeah. Okay.
Well,
yeah.
When he was in the hospital after Jack shot him.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so they actually mentioned that. So I'm thinking because he has a clear head, because Will is so perceptive to begin with, I think he realizes he's gonna clue in on him. And by the way, the music they played in that is the same music they played that was at the opera in Hannibal.
I knew it. I knew it sounded familiar. Cool. Yeah. Beverly's awesome. And I really feel like she's going to play a bigger role next season, because the other two are like, we knew it was Will the whole time. But she's like, show me the evidence, and I think that's going to play out later on to where she's going to help Will out. Your silence is deafening.
Oh, it's gonna be great. It's gonna be great. Let's go ahead and wrap this up. It's been great revisiting these 13 episodes. We want to hear from you. Do you want us to continue and do the rest of the episodes once again? I think we're eager to do that. It'd be nice to know if anybody's interested in hearing it again. But it would be so interesting to continue watching the series and reliving it again, because there's so much more ahead of us. And the way this ends on that smile. Oh, before I say this, there's another thing. When I said smile, it reminded me of something earlier. When Hannibal goes into Will Graham's house and he sees the ear, he does this weird reaction to it, and he's kind of spins on his heels. Did you guys see that? And then when he goes over to Will, he puts his hand in it. What's going on there? Is he acting? I mean, as Hannibal. I mean, obviously, Mads Mikkelsen is, but is Hannibal putting on a show for Will Graham?
I felt like he was. I mean, because he already knows everything, so he's like, "Oh no, I guess we're gonna have to call Jack Graham." It did feel.
Jack Crawford, yeah.
I mean, yeah, Jack Crawford. I'm sorry. It did seem like, it did seem like he was like trying to act like he was concerned that we're gonna have to call Crawford about this.
Making me sick. Yeah, we've seen what you've seen.
Yeah,
that's not gonna make you sick.
So that's why I'm thinking it's crocodile tears. I think the crocodile tears are just.
I thought he might have been crying about Abigail. I thought that maybe he had made like a real connection, like really cared for her, and now that he knows what he's done to her, he was maybe feeling sad about that. Does he feel sad about anything though? Ever?
Although one thing I did want to mention real quick, there's actually a deleted scene that when Will Graham escapes custody, he actually goes to Lama Bloom first before he goes to Hannibal, but they cut that out, so it's not canon. So
I like that. I like that he just turns around and he's at the top of he's on the second floor of the library.
Oh yeah,
well, he can sense him. Although the funny thing is when Hannibal first shows up, Hannibal first shows up at the jail, I almost felt like he was smelling Will Graham from across the way.
I think that's what Vanessa was saying in a totally different way. All right, let's wrap this up. We're going to give our final thoughts, our score, and favorite scene of this great episode. And if you're hanging out with us, oh man, so thank you so much for being here with us. Please hit the subscribe button so other people can find us. Hit the like button, hit the bell so you can be reminded for more. And of course, please leave some comments. Let us know what you think of all this. And encourage us to keep reviewing if that's what
Yeah, because leave comments or we'll send the Hannah stag after you.
No Hannah stags. All right, so this is what we do. We just give our final thoughts. We're going to give a score 1 to 5. It's probably going to be close to 5. And we're going to pick out a favorite scene from this. This is going to be interesting. Vanessa, I want you to go first.
I love this show.
Yes.
It's so good. I'm so happy we're reviewing it and you guys are rewatching it. And I am really hopeful that a whole new audience finds it while it's on Netflix because it's just amazing. I suggest it to so many people. It hits so many boxes, you know, different things that you could like if you're a horror fan, if you're a procedural fan, if you're kind of a murder mystery fan. It's going to tick all those boxes for you. This was a great season finale. You know, sometimes they're weak and sometimes they're strong, and this is a really strong one, really well written, just really makes you want to jump into the second season to see where this is going to go, especially with that ending. I'm torn between the scene I'm going to choose and the ending because the ending is just so phenomenal.
Yes.
So I am absolutely going to give this a 5 for the season. I think I would give the show a 5.
Nice.
Overall. Yeah. And my favorite scene, it's going to be where his mind is finally clearing and he's in the house in Minnesota with Hannibal and he's like, you did this just to see what I would do.
You did say that, yeah.
What someone with a mind like me would do. And I just loved that because, you know, Hannibal's just eating that up. Like because there's nothing Will can do to prove that in this moment, you know? Mm-hmm. And Hannibal's just eating that up and Will is just losing it at that point. I just thought it was such a powerful scene to watch play out and just really solidified that it's going to be no holds barred from this point on with Will Graham and Hannibal Lecter, I think, because it's his life. It's one life for the other at this point, right?
Right.
So he's fighting for his life.
Yep. I wonder how much Jack heard because Jack Crawford had come in the house. I wonder how much of that comes.
Yeah, I know. I was thinking that too. Like, at what point is he going to come in and maybe figure out what's going on or start to think some things? But we'll have to see.
Not yet.
You'll find out in season 2.
All right, Christopher, let us have it, man. What'd you think of this finale?
Oh my gosh. I'm feeling a lot of the same feels I felt when I watched it the first time. And nice. Because I love how they sort of take a lot of the elements that you know and love and then put their own spin on it. And also just, you know, casting such amazing actors in these different roles to where you're sort of intrigued and enjoying every little piece of dialogue throughout their reaction and the visuals of everything. If you look about like the cinematography and I was just looking at the cinematography and just in this episode and a lot of the episodes throughout the season, just the use of shadow. I mean, a lot of times when you see like when Hannibal is with Beverly and they're sitting in that room, yes. And there's always just like a little sliver of light coming through the drapes, and there's always kind of shadow coming on their faces where you just see the half, and I just oh man, just so beautiful. And I think this was directed by David Slade, who's does some of the best episodes.
He does.
And also just the dialogue. You know, there's so many great like conversations they have. I think one of my favorite lines is when Will Graham is talking to Alana, and he's like, "Have you been screaming?" It's like, "Yeah, I've been screaming in my car." And he's like, you know, I feel a scream. What is it? I feel a scream. It's perched on my chin or something.
Yeah.
I feel a scream perched under my chin.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, such a beautiful phrasing. I watch the show. Like anytime I see something that I really enjoy, I'm like, man, I want to write dialogue like that. I feel like all my dialogue sounds like a Nickelodeon show. So Yeah. So and also just getting to see whether it's fake or real, seeing Hannibal act all like he's a human, but we know he's not.
He's not a human.
He's
not a human.
But also he's not stable either. So for all we know, he might have forgotten he left something in the oven. He was crying about that.
Hannibal.
Yeah. So I guess I mean 5 out of 5. It's such a great ending that sort of like not only is a great sort of ending to sort of like keep you satiated until we get to see what happens in the next season, but at the same time, a nice another callback to the reason that we're watching this is the Silence of the Lambs. As for favorite scene, that's kind of difficult.
Yeah, it is.
The whole episode.
No,
that's tough.
Yes.
I want to say the Hannibal crying scene, but I just love that line that Will Graham says with Alana Bloom.
Mm-hmm.
I think from that scene where Alana Bloom is like being emotional in her car, and then getting into that scene where she's talking to Will, and then he I think he says something about like, they're gonna think it's because I have feelings for you or something like that.
Oh, his romantic feelings.
Romantic feelings. He's like, well, I don't think I never told him, at least
Not yet.
not yet. And then you see Jack Crawford's on the other side of the window. So I don't know, something about that scene, because I think there's such a really strong chemistry and connection between them, because she's really the only person that Will Graham feels comfortable around or has an affinity for, that's more than his 10 million dogs in his house. Which there is that one little sad part where you see the dog like, you leaving me, Daddy? So anyway, that's my scene.
Yeah, there's a lot going on with that scene I like as well. You know, with the I'll take care of the dogs. It might be a long time.
Yeah. There's like so many. It's just a beautiful scene. Great dialogue.
It is. I had a great time with this one. Like I said,
excuse me.
Bless you. I didn't remember all of it, but at the same, which I was happy for, because it felt incredibly brand new, right? So I was like, what's going? I mean, I know where this goes, but I don't remember how it got there, and it was it's riveting. It really is riveting. There, it's not a lot of action going on. There's not even a fight. There's not even it's just dialogue, and people. The conflict is Will trying to save himself or discover who he is, or to ensure that he knows who he is, and I think he does by the end of it. And it, even the one scene where he escapes, right, is not on camera, right? We're told about him escaping. We got to see the other crazy guy escape, right? And he escapes very much like him. He pops his thumb and out he goes. Except for he just threw him out of the. He threw him out in the grass and drove away. He didn't string him up. So he could have, right? Because that would have been copying that, right? But he didn't do that. So.
But he's not a killer.
That's because he's not a killer. It was pretty tense at the end when Hannibal and Will confronted Hannibal. Hannibal kept his cool though. He was in charge even when Will was grasping at that, right? He was clawing back up to the top, and he just wasn't going to let him out of there, right? So, and of course Jack came in and sewed it all up for him. I'm going to give it a 4.75. I think there's better to come, and I'm going to wait for that. But at the same time, it is such a pleasure revisiting this. I'm so glad we did this, and I'm looking forward to continuing. My favorite scene is there's a couple of ones to choose, And I'm going to choose the scene that totally surprised me because, like you, Chris, I did not remember it. And that's when Will and Hannibal are in Hannibal's office, and they're talking about, the whole series of events. He goes, but I wasn't even in Minnesota, when that happened. And he goes, but it was over the weekend. And then he gets up and he starts looking around, and he sees what look like the stag statues, but large, and they've transformed into the killings, right? We see all of them, even the doctor, right? And they look like dark bronze or whatever statues that, they're made out of, and they're creepy and effective. And then of course it ends with him seeing the stag there. And I really like that. Another thing I noticed before we wrap this up is I saw a couple camera shots that looked like it was straight out of Fight Club, where Will stayed the same, but all the camera stuff.
That whole first part of the episode, they did some filter type stuff that had it kind of like the image kind of shaking around.
Except for Will. And they did it again when the stag appeared behind Jack.
Mm-hmm. So it's kind of cool if they can take, like, when you have mental illness or you have some kind of problems mentally or physically, that to recreate that for you that's watching it.
Yeah, I remember that in Fight Club so vividly. When Tyler Durden's looking at the camera and everything else is going.
Yeah.
All right, well, there you go. That's our review of the season finale of season 1 of Hannibal. Wow, what a trip. Vanessa, Christopher, thank you so much for joining me on this.
I loved it.
The show brings me so much joy, and being able to watch it again, with feels like fresh eyes again, going back and seeing things I missed. It just shows you that how well crafted and artful this show is, and it's just one of the amazing shows ever created. So I'm glad that we could revisit it and talk about it again, and keep talking about how awesome this show is.
Yes, absolutely. All right, with that, let's say goodnight, guys.
Good night.
Good night.
Oh no, good night.